Mere Mortals, welcome back to another edition of the Mere Mortals Conversations. This time around, I got the privilege and the good fun to chat with William Kearney. Now, Will is one of the lead coaches over in Crossfit Torian, somewhere that I've been going now for the last few months. And look, I've got to say, it was a little bit greedy. I wanted to have a conversation with these guys to find out a little bit around their training, what the mindset is all about around these top level athletes. So Will recently competed at the Crossfit Torian, which was basically the Oceania regionals equivalent for the CrossFit Games. Now, him, along with a couple of other individuals, were very highly top placed. I mean, if you're already going there, you're in the top 30 in Australia. So these are high quality athletes. So amongst obviously asking some questions around where it all began, why CrossFit, we also got into little things around recovery, how Will actually recovers, probably the telltale signs of a good gym versus a bad gym, and a couple of other insights as well. So make sure you tune in and enjoy this conversation with William Kearney. So for me, man, what I'm most interested to find about you is why CrossFit?
So I found CrossFit when I was 14. My mum, she worked in a retail store, and then her friend actually who worked with her, she did it. And I was just one day, I asked mum, what she did. Mum said she did CrossFit. Didn't think too much of it. Looked it up on the internet. Saw that's pretty cool, I guess. And then didn't really act on it from there. And then it wasn't till probably a few months later. I can't remember exactly. It was so long ago, but I came across some 2013 CrossFit game footage, and I saw them do handstand walks, deadlifts, pistols, ring muscle ups, overhead walking lunges, all these cool things. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Yeah, and I was like, well, I want to have a go at this, right? So I said to mum, like, hey, can I tee up to go with your friend? And she said, yeah, sure. Went, did a workout. Yeah, it was pretty good. Like, didn't really think much of it. Took a few months before I then came back. And then over time, the time between me going back just got shorter and shorter. And then from there, I was hooked.
You were hooked into it.
Yeah.
Were you doing sports before that as well?
Yeah, so I played rugby league, and I played that since I was like 7 years old all the way until I was about 15, 16. So yeah, I played that, and then obviously was doing CrossFit on the side with that also.
Yeah, right, okay. So obviously you were born in Gladstone and sort of raised in Gladstone?
So I was born in New South Wales. Yep, so I was born in a town called Young, and then my family and I moved to Queensland, to Tenham Sands when I was 3. And then moved into Gladstone because it was just more central for everything we needed when I went to high school. Yeah.
So I wanted to sort of get the timing right. So I was having a bit of a look and going, all right, I saw that you were doing all the way back in 2014, a little bit of CrossFit. And then I started having a look, and I think it was 2017. You actually placed, it's like 34th in the world and 4th in Australia for the boys, for the 16 to 17-year-old sort of range. I think it's around those numbers.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what I placed Australia-wise, but 34 does ring a bell because I remember I never made it games-wise as a teen. I always fell short there. So, yeah.
So my question for you was more that transition, so that boys into that men sort of competition. So that was probably like from 10, 17 over to 18, and you were still, up in Gladstone.
Yeah.
What was that transition like? And was that around the time as well when I think Shane and Tia were sort of becoming very well known at that time as well?
Yeah, so to be honest, that transition for me wasn't that daunting or that scary because I knew the level I was at. I knew of people like Royce, and I knew of people like James and all those, and I just knew, well, look, I'm in the same division of them. I'm not where they're at, so it's not going to worry me too much, and I'll just give it time, and over time, I think I'll be able to, get closer to them and hopefully compete against them, right? So for me, I was never really worried about that transition into the males. I knew that it would just be a long, slow journey type thing.
Sure. Yeah. And into doing that, obviously you carried that at that point for 3 years, 4 years, then competing sort of in the men's. Was it purely a fact that, okay, I've been doing it for a while, I'm just going to compete for the sake of competing? Or what was the drive to actually, okay, I'm going to keep on training in CrossFit, I'm going to keep on competing to get to the next stage, whatever that may be?
So for me, I do want to compete in CrossFit. I do want to make it to the games, and I do really want to do well there in the future. That's my ultimate goal. And for me, back then, that's always been the case. I've always wanted to do really well, and being surrounded by people like Shane and Tia and seeing her success and everything she's done, that really motivated me to try and strive for that as well, because I had a similar goal. Obviously, I've got a lot longer to go. I've got a lot of work to do to try and get to that point, if I ever do. But seeing that and being surrounded by that was really motivated and really encouraging for me to, all right, I've got to put in a lot of work to try and get there. And still now, to this day, that's what I think about, and that's really what I want to do.
Sure, exactly. And I look back, and I must say I'm not a person who's known CrossFit forever, right? But I've obviously trained for a very long time, and now sort of really enjoying the sport of CrossFit. But, having a look back at the historical view, we did Fran this morning, right? And Fran's not just like now, Fran's like a walk in the park for most, not even elite CrossFitters, just like intermediate CrossFitters. Yes, you can go in and go and do that. So, and something that I saw as part of the Torium Pro as well was the average age of the range was, like, of everyone competing was quite young. Like, everyone was, 21, 22, already quite at those elite levels. Do you find that the expectation, maybe what you would have seen, say, when Tia was sort of raising up and maybe a couple of years ago to now, do you feel there's expectation of, okay, well, just because you're 21, okay, next year you should already be almost at the very top levels? Or do you not feel that expectation at all?
I haven't really thought about it that way, to be honest. I mean, what I've noticed is a lot of like the guys that have been around since the 2012s, the 2013s, those people are starting to fall out of it. And there are a lot of younger upcoming people that are sort of starting to make a push. For me, personally, the only pressure I feel is the pressure put on myself. So given how I went at the pro this year, I'm not, my goal is to make the CrossFit Games. In terms of time frame for that, I'm not putting pressure on myself to make it next year. Obviously, I'm going to push as hard as I can, and I want to do better than what I did this year, which will get me a bit closer. But for me, I'm trying to think of the long game rather than the short game. And the way I've always thought about it was, I don't want to be the 21, the 22-year-old that was really good. I want to be the 24, 25-year-old that stuck around until he was 30, 30 plus, right?
To the point that it's, okay, now it's time to go on.
Exactly. I want to be in it for the long game. I don't want to be in it just for 1 or 2 years. I want to be there multiple years and always improving, right?
Do you find that, did you either grow up with individuals who were like that, or have seen, in other places across either CrossFit or other sports where you've seen that happen, where, they really tried to push it too hard too early and eventually either burnt out or, just actually didn't go about?
Yeah, well, the easiest example is all the people that I was competing against in the teenage division.
Sure. Yeah.
So most of those kids that I was competing against in the teens and getting beaten by aren't even around anymore. And because they were all really good at that point, and a few of them have pushed through and had really good success, and in fact still better than me, but a lot of them have dropped off. And I saw that when I played footy. All my footy mates, same thing, in under 13s, 14s, I never got picked for a rep side. I knew footy wasn't what I wanted to do, but I still wanted to get picked. And all the kids that did, they were in Cowboy academies, they're in Bronco academies. None of them are playing footy now, or at least if they are, they're only playing local footy. Like only a very few of them that were my age have actually pushed through to the next level.
Yeah, I think that's often, the thing around patience that's not really seen, right? It's like you can achieve quite good greatness in whatever locale that you're working in or the context that you're looking at, but until a certain point when it's maturity or it's absolute luck to being able to get to those places.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, for you, I wanted to so you touched on the Torium Pro, and I want to pick on Double Trouble, because I think it's the one that you placed 6th at. It was your best placing position.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What was your mindset like going into it? Like, so before you actually, so backstage, going into and actually performing, what does your mind go through? And was that one of the biggest stages you sort of competed at?
So it was the biggest stage I've competed at, individual open division wise. I competed at Wadapalooza in 2017. No, 2018 when I was a teen, I believe, or 2019. 2019 when I was a teen, which was a big stage as well. But this is the biggest open age one that I've ever done. So for me, double trouble, I did not expect going into the weekend to be my best placing. I thought the reverse try would be my best placing, just given I'm confident with that and I know that's a strength of mine. But going into that event, honestly, I was really nervous for the Echo bike, because the Echo bike for me has always been a weakness and something that I need to work on. And relative to who I train with and stuff, I'm hopeless on it, right? And the drag rope and the dumbbell, didn't really think too much about them. I was just like, look, I thought honestly, all right, I'm just going to get creamed on this bike here. That's literally what's going to happen. I'm just going to get creamed on the bike, and hopefully the rest of it I'll just fall into place, right? So, but prior to the event, I noticed in myself that I didn't have that nervous or anxious feeling that I did on a few other events. And generally, if I feel like I'm not going into the event feeling nervous or worried about a particular part, that's when I do my best. And for some reason, I just didn't have that feeling. Yeah, for some reason, I don't know why. I just didn't have that worry or doubt in my mind. And I went out there and it ended up being the best placing for me. Obviously, I would have loved to have placed better or would have loved to have won the event like always do. But for me, when I left the floor, I was really happy with my effort and really surprised at how well I did, considering how poor I did at it at practice.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, I can see that. Yep. So and probably compare that to, I can't remember the name of it, but it was when you actually had to pull the sled. It was actually sled pull.
Oh, move it or lose it. Yeah.
That was almost you coming into it with a good mindset. You weren't anxious about it. Now, move it or lose it was a similar mindset where you knew, you already obviously trialed it. It was going to be a hard thing. Was there any difference in mindset when you were actually doing that one, or was it just, man, this is just tough as shit?
It was more so just, this is tough. Like I've done sled pulls and that before, but I think it was just, given the length of the rope, the flooring that we were on, all those things play a factor, and all of that stuff was just something that I obviously haven't trained enough to be good at. And relative to the guys that were in my heat who crushed it, it was like, it made me look real bad. You know what I mean? Like I got a very similar score to most people, but everyone in my heat did it in like 2 rounds. Yeah,
if I can actually remember, I think on that particular round there was Khan Porter, Royce was near you, James was near you.
Yeah, so I had Matt, James, Luke, Royce, Khan, and Baden. Yeah. So literally like the top 7 in Australia who I'm trying to go against in the heat. And like in going into the workout, like I wasn't so nervous for it, because again, when I practiced it, I actually did all right at it. But just different sled, different rope. 5 events have already been done. By that point I'm going into it pretty buggered. So it was just one of those events that just didn't go the way it should have. I tried as hard as I could, and I was happy with that, but it's just something I got to work on.
Sure. No, totally understandable.
Yeah.
With that particular sort of Torium Pro, right? I wanted to get your perspective on how you recover after that.
Okay.
And what does your recovery look like normally? So I'm just going to give you an example, right? When I'm doing either freeing or some other kind of workout, I'll try to do some accessory work afterwards. Yeah. And I'm just jacked up. By the time it comes to the end of the week or the weekend, I'm just tired, can't even move.
Yeah.
You guys, especially during those weekends, it's sort of back-to-back training or workouts. Do you do anything in particular for recovery, or what do you suggest to people?
Yeah. So for me, what I look at with recovery is I try and get as much food in my belly as I possibly can. Yeah. Like I'm trying to constantly eat, and I'm a very poor eater, and I know that's something that I need to improve on, because for me, my goal at this point of time in the year is I want to actually put on size. Relative to the other guys, I'm quite small, right? So for me, in a competition, I'm always trying to eat as much as I can. Obviously drink as much water as possible. I really get into the electrolytes. I get hydrolyte tablets, make sure I'm staying hydrated the whole time. I I actually had access to some Normatec boots, which were amazing for my legs. Like they just helped my legs recover so much, which were lifesavers.
The difference between, just doing all that normal stuff and the added Normatec, like what does it actually feel like when you put them on and sort of the feeling afterwards?
So good, so much relief. Like when you put them on, they basically just compress your leg and they just start from your shin, your ankle, work all the way up into your hip. And then it just sort of like lets air off and just does that cycle over and over again. And when you take them off, your legs feel amazing. So along with that, lots of stretching, lots of food, and then I'm just trying to relax. Like I just try not to do anything, just to sort of save my energy. And I find for me that's the best thing I do for recovery, or that's what helps me a lot. Just lots of food and like using those boots and just body work.
Yeah, for sure. And then a question about coaching. So obviously, we're touring here.
Yep.
You are a coach, one of the lead coaches here. I know that you are as a PRVN coach as well.
Proven, yep.
Proven. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I looked at that as PRVN. I'm like, proven. There you go.
Yep.
So, where did was coaching just a simple next step because you're doing CrossFit? Was it a thing that, yes, I also really want to do this? What was the impetus to actually going and doing that coaching?
So basically I started coaching when I was in school, and I would just help out at CrossFit Gladstone, like just doing 1 or 2 classes a week, like just assisting, music, all that sort of stuff, and just interacting with people. And I knew that I wanted to do coaching because it allowed for very easy access towards like training and stuff like that. And for me, my ultimate goal in the future, when my athlete career is done, I mean, hopefully there is an athlete career, but when that is finished, my goal is to own a gym. And I want to run my own gym. I've worked with a lot of different people owning gyms, and I've learned a lot of do's and learned a lot of don'ts, I believe. So I feel like I would be in a good position to open one eventually. But for me, coaching, yes, is a love, and I do really enjoy doing it. But I think at this point in my life that the athlete side of thing is, something that I want to try and push for to do a little bit more. But the coaching side of things, I know when the athlete side of stuff is done, that's what my life will be, and I know that for a fact that that's where I want to go afterwards. That's the path towards it. Exactly.
Do you feel that CrossFit boxers get so wrong? Like, what is the thing that you've seen? Not so much, maybe not wrong, but maybe they're just not doing as right as they could be.
Well, I think, one thing I find a lot of is like in terms of, programming, I think sometimes can be a bit of a pitfall for some gyms in which there's too much put into the class, in the sense that there's no opportunity to really either one, warm up the athletes, two, give them good coaching content on what to do for the specific movements of the workout. So cramming, 3 or 4 pieces into an hour-long session, I just don't think is a good way to go about it, especially considering the complexity of a lot of the movements we do. I think it's very important that we, the less than the hour, the better, and we do what is programmed to our full potential. We hit it as hard as we can. For our workout today at the gym, is Fran. It's a 6-minute workout for most people, right? But we run through a good, thorough general warm-up, a good, thorough specific warm-up. We allow a good primer to prepare them for the workout. Then they hit it so hard. And everybody today that I've seen hit this workout have hit it and gone down on the floor. You know what I mean? Like if we were to program a heavy thruster beforehand or front squats beforehand, people look at that and go, I want to put more emphasis on my strength, so I'm going to let Fran suffer. Or I don't really care about the strength. I'm going to focus on Fran. So there's never going to be 100% effort into all of it. And most of the people that come into the gym, they're general population. They don't need multiple stuff. All they need to do is move and feel good and get coaching. That's what I think, right? So along with programming, I think I see also like a big lack in cleanliness sometimes. I think taking care of all the gear and that stuff is a really important part. And it's an example, like if you can see actually in the video when you look back, and that's one thing that amazed me. I thought I was going to come to these sort of CrossFit boxes and go, man, it's going to be chalk everywhere. It's always clean. It is nice to go somewhere where 100%.
It just doesn't look like it's just trash everywhere, like everything's going around.
Given the workout, like if there's stuff on the pull-up bars and all that, like there's bound to get chalk on the floor and that, but it's just about, trying to get that and clean it up later on, you know what I mean? So along with that, I think one thing that I really like about Torian, what I've really think is a key part, is the interaction with people behind the scenes. In regards to communications via email, there's a lot of social networking going on like the group Facebook pages and stuff, which I think is a really important part. And through other gyms, I've noticed that it's probably not as big thing, but here at Torian, I know that really is, and I think that's a really important piece of it as well. So member interaction, keeping the gym clean, and as well making sure that the programming is appropriate to, general population. I think those are three important things to make sure that the gym is going well. And if one of those or multiple things of those aren't happening, then it's probably the gym's probably not going to go as good as what it could.
Sure, no, definitely. And one thing, being at Torian that probably affords you is, like you were saying, being able to chat with Royce, who obviously came first in Australia at the Torian Pro. But you also, went down to South Australia to go and train with James Newbury. Training with these sort of individuals who, have gone to the CrossFit Games, they're sort of a name worldwide. What are the things you're probably learning from those sort of individuals that, you look at now and go, okay, these are probably little insights that maybe I wouldn't have picked up for a few years, if there's any?
Well, I think one thing that is pretty universal about them all is just the amount of time and effort they put into their stuff. They sacrifice a lot of things to train and do what they need to do. And for me, that's just a big eye-opener of, okay, that's what sort of has to go into it. In terms of teaching me things, so much that I can't remember it all. Like, Royce, he's always offering me tips on everything that I'm doing. He's always, giving me a lot of confidence that I didn't think I had when we were in training. He's always giving me a little boost up like that. And, when I went and visited James over that week before the pro, just in terms of like approaching events and, practicing some of the events that we were doing, he was really good in the sense of, calming me down as well. Along with that, he would give a lot of good advice on, this is probably going to be a good strategy just to practice it and to try and fine tune it towards before going into the workout. But the universal characteristic for me is just looking at how much they put into it and how much they sacrifice to do well. And I think for me, that's what's really hit home with every one of those guys that I've worked with.
The final key question I got for you is, you see that it's both the patience and the sacrifice. Do you see yourself, and you've kind of already alluded to it, but you go, yep, I'm prepared to sort of sacrifice and put in the effort over the next 3-5 years, whatever it is, to get to those levels and sort of achieve what you want to be achieving?
So the past couple, since coming from the pro and, the past couple weeks, I've sort of had a bit of an opportunity to sort of sit back and reflect a little bit on the pro and sort of where I want to go. And I think for me, I've really put the thought in my head that I am ready to sacrifice what I need to try and do really well. I remember back in high school, a lot of my friends and stuff were always going out and partying and all that, and I never got sucked into that because I was so conscious of, I need to train. And I've always been, I've made a few of those sacrifices earlier on. So knowing that that's what goes into it, I'm more than happy to make those because I know this is what I want to do and this is what needs to happen for me to actually do well in it.
Sure, yeah, certainly. And I think it's one of those that's often not seen, right? You see either a Matt Fraser or you see Tia or other people and you go, man, they must just have God-given gifts and they must be amazing.
They do a lot of work.
They put a lot of work.
A lot of work into it, for sure.
So it's almost humbling to almost for myself, you come in to here and you go, oh yeah, as you're saying, you're working out with everybody, everyone's doing pretty good training, and then all of a sudden it's oh man, you see just how far along these guys are, like yourself or Royce or Jack, just because of how much effort and time you're putting into it. So, look, Will, really appreciate the time you've taken to have a bit of a conversation with us. If people want to reach out to you at all, where would you suggest they actually go and check out, or is there any particular links or any information you want to share?
The easiest way to probably get in touch with me is Instagram. So my handle is Will Kearney 09. Pretty simple. So if you want to get in touch with me for whatever reason, just send me a message via Instagram, and I am pretty bad at checking my requests if I do get any. I always forget. Or as well, my email address, whcarney 18@gmail.com. People can go to that, and I'm a little bit better at replying to emails because they come through a little bit more frequently. So that's no dramas at all.
Excellent. Cheers, Will.
Sweet.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.